Okay, so we've gone over our sewing machine. We understand most of the basics. We've practiced a bunch, and we're getting excited to start and trying to make some clothing. Our next step is understanding patterns, how you can make your own patterns, where you can find other patterns other people make, just a basic understanding of how things come apart. All of my patterns I make myself. A lot of the times people ask, where do you get your patterns from? How do you source them? I just simply go to the thrift store, find something I like. Let's say I like how this hoodie fits me. I will take it home, get a seam ripper, and just take it apart stitch by stitch. This allows me to understand how it was put together by taking it apart, and it just kind of helps me visualize how big this panel is going to be, that panel is going to be, what have you. So I'll show you a few examples of why it's nice to seam rip something apart, and yeah, let's get into it. So here we have just a back panel to some pants. It's a little wrinkly, but you kind of get the gist of it. I'll press it out before I actually use it to cut out. But what's nice with seam ripping is not only do I have my seam allowance already in the pattern, but I also have the seam allowance of things like waistband, elastics, and what have you. So like right here, we can see that it's folded in there, there, and there, and that will be our hemmed waistline, and then we can add our elastic. As we look at things like denim and jeans, we can just observe, okay, there's a seam here. Maybe I want to work on doing some stuff like this. Well, I can just take apart this middle seam. That'll open everything up, and I can customize it accordingly. Here's a great example. This is just a hoodie pattern I have. Can't remember the size. I think it's men's large. But the idea with patterns is we're taking, or the idea with clothing in general, is we're taking flat pieces and then turning them into 3D wearable things. So, for example, we can look at something like a sleeve, and we can kind of see and visualize, okay, how it's going to drape. It's going to come around, but when we open it up nice and flat, we can see that it just has a very basic shape in which we can lay on top of something else and use this as our template to cut it out. Once we have all of our pieces cut out, we can sew it all together and turn it into a hoodie, like this would be as an example. And that's pretty much the basics of pattern making. I taught myself how to do button-ups by taking them apart, pants, t-shirts, hoodies, anything you want to make is very, very helpful to be able to find one at the thrift store. Say I want to make a crazy ski jacket. I have no idea what it takes to make a ski jacket. I can find a ski jacket for $5 at the thrift store. It fits me the way I like it. I can take it home, spend the time taking it apart, really diving into the depths of it. Where does this go? Why is this seam here? What's this seam do? How does this pocket come into play? And it just really helps me. That's how I've personally done it, and it just opens up a million different avenues for different pieces I want to make. You can take apart a dress and do the same thing. Anything you can find at the thrift store or any article of clothing you can take apart and reassemble with a different fabric. In terms of different types of patterns, that's the way I've found to do it. Again, I'm not a professional, and it may be taboo to a lot of people that are like really into pattern making and measurements and this and that, but you can buy people's patterns. I've seen a bunch online. There's also paper patterns or parchment paper patterns you can buy at like Joann's Fabrics or whatnot. But to me, this is the easiest, most accessible way to do so, and it really helps me visualize how these round tubes are turned into flat pieces in which I can cut out, if that makes sense. And again, that is the basics of how I make my patterns. I just take stuff apart. Um, Keeping it simple with this video, just really wanted to explain in depth how I make my patterns. People ask me all the time, and it's really, 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 really simple, and you can do it just as easily. And yeah, whoops. In our next video, I think I'm going to start talking about making bags and doing some measurements and that kind of stuff. I know a lot of people are scared by zippers. They're really fun, they're really easy. So yeah, I think we're gonna do a follow along with the next video on how you can make your own bag. See you guys in the next one.